Today, we will hear arguments in the case New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Brune. Counselors, can you please introduce yourselves?
My name is Nina Okachukwu, and I'm from the Baldwin School.
My name is Amelia Skavinsky. I'm from the Baldwin School, and we will be representing the respondents.
Thank you. Could you please provide a summary of your argument?
The Second Amendment protects the individual right to keep and bear arms, but it is also one that is heavily limited. The District of Columbia versus Heller supports the idea that the right to keep and bear arms is not a right to be used haphazardly, and the limits upon the amendment are clear and long-standing. As revealed when it is stated in the case that although we do not undertake an exhaustive historical analysis today of the full scope of the Second Amendment, nothing in our opinion should be taken to cast doubt on long-standing prohibitions on the possession of firearms by felons and the mentally ill, or laws forbidding the carrying of firearms in sensitive places such as schools and government buildings, or laws imposing conditions and qualifications on the commercial sale of arms. Here, the Second Amendment and its limits are clear. These limits not only apply to the person's well-being and mental state, as well as sensitive spaces, but they can also be applied to the case of concealed carry. Concealed carry is not constitutionally supported. New York's proper cause law is constitutional and should therefore be upheld. The Heller case reveals that the New York law has not burdened the petitioner's constitutional right, as they are constitutionally able to carry guns within their own home. The New York law is constitutional and should be upheld, as the Second Amendment does not support concealed carrying.
Thank you. Could you please provide a brief recitation of the facts?
When petitioners Robert Nash and Brandon Koch, two citizens residing in New York, felt as though they needed to carry guns as a result to protect themselves and attempted to apply for a concealed carry license, their requests to carry were ultimately denied because their reasons did not meet with the proper requirements in accordance with the New York's proper cause law. The New York law essentially states that any person who feels the need to carry a concealed handgun and desires a license to carry said handgun is required to show a proper cause in order to obtain the license. The District of Columbia to reveal a special need to defend themselves. Robert and Brandon's desire to conceal carry was precisely what the law did not uphold. Essentially, the law's creation stands in the place of protection of all people and communities as a whole, rather than for the protection of one person. For this reason, it is abundantly clear that the New York law and its policies are inherently constitutional. The creation of this law does not hinder and does not infringe upon the petitioner's freedom. This law is constitutional and does not threaten the lives or properties of the petitioners.
Thank you. What does the Second Amendment protect?
The Second Amendment protects the individual right to bear arms. One has the right to bear arms inside of their home, but these rights are limited once they step out.
Thank you. Why did the framers include the Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights?
The purpose of the Second Amendment was to allow the militia to overpower and impede a tyrannical federal government if there was ever the need to.
Thank you. What are the limits of the Second Amendment's protections?
Though the Second Amendment has certain protections, it is also abundantly clear, or should be, that it also has clear limitations. Once a person steps outside of their home, their protections from the Second Amendment immediately become limited. These limitations refer to location, mental stability of the person, whether a person has a history of violence, and also age. Along with this, the right to conceal carry is not a right that is protected by the Second Amendment.
Thank you. What weapons does the term arms include?
Though the term arms could have a broad definition, when it was written, it was not explicitly stated what weapons were included. However, it can be inferred that the term arms includes weapons such as pistols, guns, and rifles. The weapons included in the term arms have an implied limitation that applies to the person carrying the weapon and the locations in which they are carrying it. These limitations are covered within the Second Amendment's protections.
Thank you. What is the difference, if any, between the words bear and keep?
The Second Amendment can be interpreted in a multitude of ways. Within this is the interpretation of the verbs keep and bear. These two are referring to different circumstances and situations. When the two terms are used together, they may refer to the collective right of the militia as well as a person's individual right. When they are used separately, their definitions differ. The term keep may refer to the militia's collective right, while the term bear may refer to one's individual right.
Thank you. What is a militia, and why did the framers refer to it in the Second Amendment?
A militia is a military force composed of able-bodied citizens in order to supplement to a regular military if there ever was the need. In the current day, there is no regulated militia. The framers referred to it because there was a regulated and active militia during the time of the writing of the amendments. The Second Amendment was included to allow the militia to prevent a tyrannical federal government if needed.
Thank you. How should courts determine if a gun control regulation is considered long-standing?
Courts should determine if a gun control regulation is long-standing by evaluating how it has been used before. If the regulation is actively being used, passes the test of scrutiny, and has been established for a long period of time, then it can be considered long-standing.
Thank you. What is strict scrutiny, intermediate scrutiny, and rational basis review?
These three are the levels of judicial review. Strict scrutiny is the highest level of judicial review that can be applied. It is used to determine the constitutionality of certain laws and of government discrimination. It is commonly used when the plaintiff sues the government in cases of discrimination. Strict scrutiny is also used in cases when a fundamental right is being threatened by law. Intermediate scrutiny is also used to determine whether a law is constitutional or not. It is only invoked when a law is passed which would negatively affect particular protected classes. Rational basis review is the lowest level of scrutiny that can be applied to a challenged law. In order to be constitutional under rational basis review, it must have a rational connection to a valid goal of the government.
Thank you. Is there a difference between openly carrying a firearm and concealed carrying a firearm?
Yes, there is a difference between openly carrying a firearm and concealed carrying a firearm. To openly carry a firearm means that the firearm is clearly visible, most usually meaning with a holster or shoulder rig. To conceal carry a firearm means to have it completely concealed and not visible, more discreet. The choice between how to carry a firearm is sensitive and dependent on the location and people around. Open carried firearms cannot be seen in locations such as government buildings and school buildings. Those who openly carry a firearm in public should proceed with caution as it is uncertain how those around them could react.
Thank you. And how should the court consider the public safety implications of licenses to carry firearms?
The court should consider that the people and the state should regulate safety implications rather than the court.
Thank you. And what would you have the court rule today?
We would like that if the court would rule in favor of the New York law.
Thank you.